You living in that Ewing house. Too good for regular coffee? Too good to drink pinto bean coffee? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Soap Floor, the official gathering place for newbies, novices, and OG diehard fans of the golden age of primetime. I'm your host, JR Ewing, and reviewing one of the lower level sudsy episodes of Dallas from 1981. So whether you're new to this or true to this, sit back and enjoy. Tell the kids to play outside or out of sight. Tell babe no questions, suggestions, or concerns for the next 25 or 35 minutes. Everyone else in earshot, cool, quiet, or kicked out, those are your only options because we are watching our stories. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Soap Floor. Hello, gorgeous. Welcome back, party people, to another fun-filled edition of Soap Floor. Gotta be honest with you, this one is not going to be super long. We are jumping back into Dallas, season 4, episode 9. And this one is pretty cut and dry. I feel like this is one of those builder episodes. We need a couple things to happen so that we can build out the story going forward. I feel like this is a longer season too, y'all. If I'm being honest with you, I am recording this from the bed. I'm feeling a little under the weather today. So I thought I'd vibe in bed. And I made the mistake of thinking I was a big girl now. And I decided I was going to watch something a little nostalgic, but very, very terrifying. I put on Unsolved Mysteries, quickly freaked myself out after like an episode and a half. I don't know what I was thinking. Remember how I told you guys, like, my dad had us on a regimen. We could only watch TV like for so long when we were very little. And like, I watched a lot of like Designing Women, a lot of things that were in syndication, Cheers, stuff like that, because that was what came on before The Simpsons, but like after Power Rangers, depending on what season it is. One of the things that would scare the crap out of me with the quickness is when my mom would come in and she'd insist on watching Unsolved Mysteries. It came on at 6:30. You better believe I found a book or something to entertain myself after that. I hated that guy so much. And today I thought I'd be brave and quickly regretted it. So I rewatched season 4, episode 9 of Dallas. Just looked forward to, looks like there's only 23 episodes this season. So this is about the mark. This is about the time where you got to start thickening the plot a little bit. We've already had the shooting. We've already had Kristen leave. Not really much else is going on. 3 things and 3 things only are happening on this episode. So grab yourself something to drink, kick back. We're going to keep it cute. We're going to keep it quick. Season 4, episode 9, Dallas, the Prodigal Mother. First things first. Yes, this is still about Ewing 23. We're still trying to figure out what to do about it. Nobody's really pressed, but something that stands out to me on this episode is that JR is better at psychological warfare than anybody else. He is leaps and bounds ahead of Jock and Bobby and pretty much all of Dallas. JR does this thing better than anyone, fictional or not. He is perfectly content whether people absolutely hate his guts or they adore him. It's the same vibe. It's the same energy despite the surroundings. It's very, very unusual. I think most people I know, by about 30, you start to realize that, okay, I'm probably not going to be the best of friends with everybody. You start really understanding. Sometimes you just associate with people. Sometimes you tolerate some people. Some people you just don't like. They don't like you. And it's fine. You don't have to ruin your life. You don't have to ruin theirs. You don't even have to talk about it. And you can be content with that. I would say most people, though, feel away if you find out that someone hates your guts and you can't really figure out why. It might nag at you a little bit. JR, on the other hand, he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly how many people he screwed over. He knows he screwed the pooch with his family more times than a little bit. Yet he still walks up and down the hallways as chin up, chest out, like the world is his oyster and he's never done anything wrong. We see this at the beginning. You know how the Ewings pregame before they have a meal? I really don't understand the pregame prep rally before every single meal. They're waiting in the living room having a few cocktails. Never mind the fact that Sue Ellen was a swampy drunk season and a half ago. They're over that. Never mind that Jock had some sort of heart condition that everybody seems to have forgotten about. We're all going to congregate while the servant folk prepare us a delicious meal. On this particular night, Lucy has invited over her boyfriend, Mitch, who is subject number 2, which we'll jump into just a bit here and then a little bit more later on. Immediately, the thing that stands out is that Bobby, of course, he's, Ewing 23 just blew up in the most amazing graphics I've ever seen on television. They had that Sci-Fi Channel budget. God, do y'all remember how terrible the Sci-Fi Network is? I'm sure it's still out. And let me be very clear. I think the series on Sci-Fi Network were fine. It was like the movies they had a budget of about $14. Anyway, Ewing 23 is gone kaboom. JR is stirring the pot because he wants to jump back in the saddle. He wants to be head of Ewing Oil. And you can tell Jock does too. We're not really talking about that. Jock is still going off to Fort Worth every chance he gets to kind of focus on the ranching aspect of their business. But his 2 little homeboys keep showing up like, hey man, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. You can tell he wants to be that dude again. It seems like he retired a little bit too early. And I've thought about that. I hadn't thought about it in a while. But I thought probably right after his heart attack. It didn't seem like he was stressed by the job per se. I don't understand why he couldn't stay on his head and then have the boys as vice president, but it seems like he jumped out of the saddle a little too quickly and he wants to get back in. So we see JR working his magic. He's planting little thoughts here and there. Bobby, you can't do that. You can't. Why are we going to waste all this Ewing money on new equipment? And Bobby's like, shut up, dude. Like that thing pumps out millions of dollars a month. We're going to be fine. Jock's like, okay, yeah, but what if it keeps burning? I've seen oil wells burn for years and years and years. Nobody's talking about the attempted murder. It's just another day in the neighborhood. I guess once one family member's been shot, the novelty's gone. They don't really care. So Mitch, who is Lucy's boo, is sitting on the couch and she's making these big puppy dog eyes at him and he's like squirming like he has hemorrhoids or something. And he looks over to Lucy and he says, does your family talk about anything other than money? We'll get to that. She's like, ignore them. Who cares what they talk about? Let's go eat. So finally, Teresa or whoever announces that the meal is ready and the family leaves their little pregame and they all start heading towards the dining room. Oh, Ellie goes over to Jock. She's noticed that he hasn't really made an attempt to get to know Lucy's boyfriend. Now, on the one hand, we all know Lucy gets around. He's probably just like, let me just not get attached. I'll worry about it when I need to. But out of his mouth, he says, why do I need to get to know the, what does he call him? Parking attendant. And JR just cackles. This really rubbed me the wrong way. Jock and JR and the rest of the Ewings are ranchers first, which is a very, very blue collar job. And they're oilmen after that, which can be either a very blue collar or very white collar job. Part of the appeal, if you live in the States, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm curious. We have listeners all over the world. Shout out to y'all worldwide. Whenever there's like a political campaign coming up in the United States, and I would love to hear from people from all over the States. In the U.S., there is something about you proving, if you're a politician, how down home you are. Now, I'm never going to be political on here, but I'm just pointing out this fact. Doesn't matter how blue blood you are. It doesn't matter if your family's been rich for like the last 300 years. They'll be like, yeah, we're just regular people. You'll see them squatting. They're picking up the dirt. They're going by the Dairy Queen, waving at the farmers and stuff. Oh yeah, we're of the people. The closer you are to like a farmer or a steel mill worker, what else? An oil field worker. I'm trying to think something. Just think of anything. A roughneck, a guy who, works in the coal mines, depending on what part of the U.S. you're in. If you're a sailor, the closer you are to the hard working people, the salt of the earth. America loves to think of ourselves as like, we're those people. The better off you do in your campaign generally. You have to be, campaigning to the little guy. When I think of cattlemen and oil guys, especially like the wildcatters, which is what Jock claims to have been, like somebody who just kind of got lucky, got out there, start digging, pulled himself up by the bootstraps, built. You know what I mean? You would be the highfalutinous blue collar guy. To then turn your nose up at a guy who parks cars, and mind you, he parks cars along with 17 other jobs because he is putting himself through school. Why is nobody banking? Nobody is talking about the fact that Mitch is going to be a doctor. They're acting like he's going to skin chinchillas and sell them on the black market. He is working. He is feeding himself, clothing himself, putting himself through medical school every single day, getting up, working to take care of himself. He's not robbing anybody. He's not selling drugs. He's not pimping out women. He ain't, screwing his friends out of millions and millions of dollars. He simply goes to work, comes home, and Jock scoffs at the fact he parks cars. I'm like, you kick cow turds. You literally are elbow deep. I'm not even going to go there. You kick cow turds. You have a wife in an insane asylum. You had a prodigal son or a kid walking around on your ranch for 15 years. You got him living in the outhouse like an animal instead of in your house. But, manual labor? You park cars at a prestigious restaurant? Gross. Anyway, the episode is more or less that. It's concerning Jock, JR, and Bobby. Jock's friends want him to get involved in some sort of cattle or... No. They want him to buy some land in Louisiana. So this would be the Texas-Louisiana border. It's swampland right now, but they feel like they can turn it into a resort or, something magical. They just need his eyes on it. They meet at the Cattlemen's Club. Because they're highfalutin, but they're down to earth. They're cattlemen, And he takes Ray. JR happens upon them. He didn't happen upon him. He plans it. Devil works hard. Chris Jenner works harder. JR works hardest. He shows up, injects himself into the conversation, and he starts playing these psychological games with his dad. But Jock has yet to decide whether or not he wants to be involved in this because it's like $10 million. Well, his friends are talking. Jock's friends, his old guys, blah, blah, blah. It's not really important. JR basically plants the seed in Jock's head that, oh God, it's going to look really bad if Ewing Oil can't produce $10,000 or can't come up with 10 million. He's like, Dad, are you sure we should do 10 million right now? He's doing that thing where you say, oh honey, I don't know if I should buy this brand new vacuum. It's just so expensive. I don't know if you have enough time on your hands to put it together. It might be too complicated for you, where you like kind of insult someone so that they do something you want. That's what he does. Meanwhile, Bobby is having meetings with members of the cartel. Now, it is plain as day on this episode. The cartel is rejoicing that JR was shot. They all regret that he's still breathing. And they all kind of wish they had shot him. But you can hate the person and respect their money. Like I said, you don't always have to like everybody, but you can be cordial. And that's what they want to do. They all like Bobby. And now that they know JR's nowhere in sight, they're like, listen, Ewing Oil has clearly come into all this money. We'd be more than happy to do a little business with you. We have this whole thing going on, some offshore stuff. I think you put in I can't remember the exact amount. You put in, let's just say 10 million to keep it uniform. Put in 10 million. You get 110 back. What do you say, Bob? We're willing to let you in, let y'all back into the cartel so long as JR is nowhere near it. Bobby's like, cool. So they kind of they spend the rest of the episode off to the side dealing with that. We all know that's going to blow up into something else later on. Wonderful, wonderful. Not really. Money, 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 money. Mitch hates money. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's rewind back to the Ewing pregame, pre-dinner chitter, chat, where they sit around and they clink glasses and insult each other. Lucy's sitting there with Mitch. Mitch turns to Lucy. Does your family talk about anything other than money? She's like, ignore them. Forget them. Well, he says to her, can't ignore anything like that. Now, JR says something. He's arguing with Bobby and Jock about Ewing 23 being burnt up. JR's point is that we probably shouldn't be using our assets to pour money into this. And, it could be a one and done. It could be over. We really don't. He's thinking, let's put the money somewhere else. Let's not concentrate on Ewing 23. Let's just stop for now. Let it smother out or burn out or whatever. And then maybe later we can revisit it. I don't see why we should be pouring more money into new equipment out there. Jock doesn't disagree, but he also doesn't agree. But it's pretty clear that writing it off would not be a bad thing. Jock's kind of leaning that way because it could possibly burn for years and years. You know what I mean? Bobby and JR are in disagreement. Jock is just like, we'll see. So the conversation quickly starts to feel a little bit weak. JR points out that Bobby basically dealt with a terrorist and was extorted out of all this money. And Bobby disagrees. He's like, you just don't want me to start pumping because you don't want Cliff Barnes to get his cut. I forgot that Pam and Cliff get a cut of that. Well, JR brings Mitch into it, and JR is like, even this young man understands this. He's like, now, would you deal with terrorists? Mitch is like, well, I don't understand that kind of money. JR's like, it don't matter how much money it is. It's common sense. If someone's holding a gun to you, do you give them all your money? We're going to keep coming back to this room. This is all too much. By dinner's end, Mitch says he wants a break. Yet again, this is the third time they've broken up or been put on pause. So Lucy goes throughout the episode just kind of crying about it. She's upset. She's like, why does he keep doing this? Well, her little redhead friend tells her, okay, this kid is orderly. He's kind. He's smart. He loves to study. He's basically everything that you are not. Now, I don't know I couldn't really tell if she wanted her to get back with him or not. But Lucy tells her, girl, you're just short-sighted. I think she was being shady, talking about their girl's glasses. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Lucy's at the swimming pool one morning, where Uncle Bobby is also swimming, and they have a heart-to-heart. Side note, remember when I told you that Sue Ellen is doing a whole lot of poolside whatever? Lucy's starting to swim a bunch too. I have made up a story in my mind that whoever was in charge of the wardrobe, the head designer for the wardrobe department, was like, hey, my cousin Eleanor is a main purchaser for Kmart. She has a ton of stuff they're just going to throw out. Why don't we use it? Everybody's in a bathing suit every other episode now. But it could be the obligatory, we are sexy and we know it. We know people are looking at us. So let's put this little young thing in her little swimsuit. So she's in a Baywatch swimsuit, sitting on the side of the pool. And Bobby tells her, in not so many words, you were a big girl. Stop asking people what to do and do what your heart tells you to do. It's time for you to make a decision. If you want Mitch, go and get him. Stop asking everybody what you should do. And she's like, I don't do that. He goes, you definitely do. And then you get pissed off when people don't tell you what you want to hear. So she decides it's time to make amends. She goes to sit with Mitch at school. They're sitting on the courtyard or whatever. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, you have me wrapped around your little finger. She tells him, bet, why don't you go ahead and marry me? I cannot figure out for the life of me why Mitch would think this is a good deal. Other than his insecurity about money and Lucy telling him that, it doesn't matter. We don't really need money. Just take me away from all this. I guess this is young love, but God, does this not sound like the worst idea ever? Okay, I can tell right away there's no chemistry with these kids. There's no way Mitch is going to be on this show long term. There's just no way. I'm sure they'll bump into each other later. Once he's a doctor, I'm sure she'll get married or something. They'll bump into each other. But right now, it just doesn't make sense. Lucy leaving the show, Lucy running off, or Lucy waiting to be a doctor's wife, which everyone keeps scoffing at like she's, some sort of smuggler or something. It's just not adding up to me. But for whatever reason, Mitch agrees. Yeah, I think we should get married. Let's do it. Okay. Again, I have to remind myself this time and time again, sometimes episodes are just to build upon an idea so that we can crash it later. 100% this is a crash and burn later. Also, Mitch reminds me of Lucy's no good daddy, Gary. Y'all know I still have beef with Gary from last week. Where Mitch doesn't run from problems, per se. He is like hyper fixated on the fact that she comes from money. And anytime something gets a little bit inconvenient, anytime she just kind of enjoys the life that she lives, he takes it as a personal insult. Now, to me, that seems very unfair. She can't help where she comes from. She can't help how she lives. She certainly isn't flaunting it, but he just can't handle it. And I'm like, you really want to attach yourself to that? Because the minute she wants, Cafe Bustelo instead of the Walmart brand coffee, he's going to throw a fit. You living in that Ewing house. Too good for regular coffee? Too good to drink pinto bean coffee? He is. Damn it, Lucy, I work 17 jobs to pay for these books. And she can't never, this is a setup, Lucy. Run for the hills. Mitch seemed like a lovely young man. Run for the hills, the both of you. Some people insist on making the struggle their personality. I don't know if that's Mitch's MO, but okay, yeah, she's rich. You're probably going to be pretty rich. I'll let this go eventually, but I can't think of a single place on planet Earth where being a doctor is like gross. Ew, like you're going to be so broke. That's neither here nor there. But speaking of broke, broken dreams, broken promises, a broken identity. Pam has been doing her due diligence all season long, so that is, 9 episodes, to find her mother. Remember, Digger Barnes on his deathbed confessed that Pam belonged to another man, Hutch McKinney, and she decided from that moment on she was going to find out more about her mama. Now, her and Cliff believed her to have been dead for many, many years, but I can't remember what flipped the switch. So, let's go back one more time to the Ewing family pre-dinner, pre-game. While JR, Bobby, and Jock are discussing / arguing / throwing shade at each other, and while Mitch is cowering in the corner, freaking out over the fact that he's not a kabillionaire like the rest of these bohos, Pam is just kind of quietly watching life go by. She gets up to go to dinner when Teresa calls everyone into the dining room, but there's a phone call. Bobby picks up the phone, and it's Detective Mackey, or Private Eye Mackey. I'm not sure what the proper term would be. I suppose Investigator Mackey, her PI. And he's like, hey, Pam, I got some good news. I think I found your mama, and she is very much alive. Do you think you can get to Houston, like, as soon as possible? She's like, absolutely. Let me eat. It's roast beef night or whatever. Let me get a meal in my gut, and I'll be on the first thing smoking. So, of course, after dinner, she goes upstairs. She and Bobby are going through that thing where they can't figure out how he can work and she can work and they can still be a couple. He's having to work more and more. And he really does. He has to work triple and double and quadruple overtime because his brother is working harder than the devil and Kris Jenner to ruin his reputation. So she tells Bob, okay, I'm going to go to Houston. They think they found my mama. He goes, well, will you be back by Wednesday? I need you to go to this family event to support Donna Culver's boy. Culver, whoever. I can't remember his name. And she's like, oh, of course. I'll be there to support your family. Emphasis on your, emphasis on you suck, emphasis on I can't believe you have the audacity to blow me off and expect me to show up for you. That's what she said. Well, before long, she gets to Houston, and sure enough, Detective Mackey is super excited. This was my favorite part of this episode. The very stark difference between the way Pam hears information, the way the detective or the PI delivers it, and their ideals about their mom. There was, I can't remember which episode, they sprinkle a little bit about her mom every episode, and the last Mackey had found out was that she had left East Texas with this traveling salesman, and they believed that she was like a waitress at some point. So all signs pointed to her being alive, at least at the time she was reported dead. So when they get to the hotel room, he starts explaining to her that he looked this way, he looked that way, he did all these name checks. And based on the traveling salesman, they were able to kind of track him down. And she was with him at the time, but it seems like after that they split up, and she changed her name about dozens and dozens of times. He says every 20 minutes she's changing her name. But he's tracked her down to Houston, and Pam wants to know, well, how? How do you know this is her? And which is a valuable question. If someone keeps changing their name, especially if it's like a common, like a Rebecca, back then, I'm sure Elizabeth, names like that, Mary, you could be anybody, any age, any race. You know what I mean? It's just very difficult. So Pam is a little bit doubtful. He goes, no. That's why you pay me so much. I definitely have my ways. I'm pretty sure this is her. So Pam goes, well, God, I just can't even believe she's alive. I hope so, but did you tell her about me? He's like, no, I didn't tell her about you. They think her name is Rebecca Burke at this point. He's like, I didn't really approach her because I didn't know how you wanted to handle this. Like, he didn't know if she wants to just know and not do anything, kind of keep an eye on her going forward, or if they want to be introduced. And she goes, I know I keep asking you this, but how? How are you so sure that this is my mama? And he said something very interesting. Now, I don't know if it's true, if it's just one of those little TV tidbits, one of those soap text things so that the story fits together. But he says that when a person changes their name, they generally keep the same letters, or excuse me, they keep the same initials. So Rebecca Burke could be Rebecca Brown, Rebecca Blue, Rebecca Bernstein, Rebecca, and she kept that same pattern. He's like, this woman did that. She changed her name, but it was always something very, very similar. That reminds me of that movie Gone Girl with Ben Affleck. Remember his wife had like faked her own death? Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. And she was living off of someone else. And she ends up getting robbed because the fake name that she assumed was so very different from her real name that she never turned, like she wouldn't even answer to it most of the time. And people figured out pretty quickly that she was not who she said she was. So Pam and he decide that they're going to go visit her tomorrow. So she sits in her hotel room that night, just kind of thinking up like, wow, I can't believe my mom was here. And here comes the best possible scene. Oh, wait. I need to emphasize something. Pam's like, oh my God, is she okay? Mackie, the PI, is like, she looks pretty good to me. Now he says that more times than a little bit. I think he's a little bit sweet on her mom. The next day, they pull up to this sprawling mansion. They pull up outside the gate in the longest Lincoln Cadillac ever, or Lincoln town car ever. And he's like, oh, it's right about time. It's right about time. So the door opens, and these two women come out, and they're both holding something. And one's a maid, one's this other lady. And Pam's like, oh my God, she looks so old. Jesus, how long has she been working here? She's thinking, damn, my mom was run down. She knows she's been a waitress, she's been all these things. And the PI is like, that's not your mama. That's your mama, the other lady, Mrs. Rebecca Barnes Wentworth, the rich lady in the mansion. And immediately my mind goes back to Cliff. Cliff told him, I don't have a mama. I don't have a mom. If I had a mom, to hell with her, because you know what? She left us with him. Now, I'm sure that's easier to swallow when you think she's running for her life. She's destitute. She can't possibly afford to take care of these two children. But you cool up into a McMansion that rivals Southport. And there's your mama telling her maid what to go do while a guy in a car comes up. She gets a doorman. He opens the door. She is living the life. Pam is like, no, wait. No, I can't believe it. I just thought in my mind she was going to be old. She's going to be plain. And she was definitely going to be poor, destitute if I was lucky. But you mean to tell me she has been living here? And he's like, yeah, with her husband. She's like, wait a minute. How does a broke down, old in the face waitress pull a rich man like that? But she just cannot imagine that her mom is not broke. The detective's like, well, I mean, she went to school. After she left the salesman, she got down here, she went to school, she got into secretary school, she starts working with Wentworth. Now I'm thinking, J.G. Wentworth, 877 cash now. 877 cash now. Maybe that Wentworth, maybe not. But she became his secretary, they fell in love. He was the president of the company, and the rest is history. Pam is taking this quite well now that she knows her mom's not old and poor. When she wraps her mind around that, she's like, oh my God, is she in love with her husband? Are they happy? Yeah, they're fine. But she has one daughter named Catherine who lives in New York. And I'm so excited because you know what that means? That's more drama. At some point, Catherine gets to slink into town, hopefully shake up some things. Pam is taking this pretty well. But she does go back to the hotel and she calls the house, and Rebecca Burke Wentworth answers the phone and pretends like she doesn't know who this is. Pam says, hi, my name is Pamela. Pamela Ewing. Does that name mean anything to you? She's like, no. Ewing maybe, but no. She goes, okay, I'd really like to talk to you. Do you have some time to meet with me? First, Rebecca's like, no, I really don't have time. Pam's like, I won't take up much of your time. And she sounds so sweet. She sounds like a little girl wanting to speak to someone. She's so polite. That was what struck me. She has the best telephone manners. She's being so kind, so courteous. And finally, Rebecca says, okay, sure. Do you know where I live? Come by tomorrow about 5:00. So Pam shows up, and I won't bore you with the details. She's happy. She's joyful, and she starts telling Rebecca that She believed as a little girl that her mother was dead. And now, through, some clever working and looking at things, she figures out that you're her mother. There's a little bit of something funny that happens when Pam is making the phone call. At first, she sits down with a piece of paper, and if you look at the paper, you can clearly tell that it's the lines that she's supposed to read on the phone. Anyway, she's pouring out her heart, saying that it was so hard for her to accept when her father, Digger Barnes, told her that her mother had died. She just didn't believe it. And she's like, and now here you are. And Rebecca stops her. She goes, I'm so sorry. I better do this now. My name is Rebecca Burke Wentworth, and I'm not your mother. I'm so sorry, honey. I'm just not your mother. Pam starts getting teary-eyed. I'm like, Rebecca, you ain't you trifling. Looking her in her face, too. And I'm looking at Rebecca. She kind of looks like I'm not your mom. This is just a horrible mistake. But Pam fights back tears, respectfully leaves a woman's house, even though she didn't believe. She didn't believe her. Pam knew that this woman was lying. So fast forward to Wednesday, where Pam, is being a respectable wife. The rest of the Ewings are showing up at Donna Culver's stepson's campaign, which is super weird because Cliff is his campaign manager. Sue Ellen asked a question. I was thinking, why would they all show up there? JR breaks it down and says, this guy is going to be in the government at some point. He's probably going to be governor at another. It's always good business to be on the best side with the governor. You want to be on his good side. Well, Pam and Bobby are there. They're kind of bumping elbows with everybody. And Pam she feels okay being there because she can support Cliff. Despite what the Ewings think, she's there for her brother. And she pulls him aside. She wants to talk to him real quick. And I love this. I'd never really clocked this before, but Cliff is her only family on her dad's side. Or not even her dad's side. Doesn't matter. Digger Barnes is her dad. Doesn't matter to me. They are so close. And Cliff always makes time for her. Even if it's just a few seconds, he always makes time for her. So he does just that there. She's about to tell him that she went to Houston to talk about their mom. And you can see he's rolling his eyes because like he said, he don't have a mother. I ain't got no mama. She starts talking to him and the other campaign guy says, I know Cliff, you need to introduce Culver. I need you to introduce him. And he goes, give me a second. He goes, no, it can't wait. I'm so sorry, sis. He'll be back. So Cliff goes up there and he is giving this wonderful, just reading this illustrious career of this Culver kid and why he's the answer for Texas. Really riveting. Pam looks ahead of her and guess who's standing there? It is Miss Rebecca Burke Wentworth and her husband, Mr. Wentworth. Chubby fellow, kind of looks like Santa Claus, very happy in the face. So she's like, hi, Rebecca. And Rebecca goes, hi, I'm Mrs. Ewing. She introduces Pam to her husband. And he goes, oh yeah, Ewing, your family's here. She goes, well, that's my family by marriage, but if you'll look up there behind you, that's my brother. My maiden name is Barnes, and that's my brother, Cliff Barnes. And you can see Rebecca's face kind of crack a little. She's like, oh, shit. She turns, she looks, and Cliff is giving this riveting speech. And it's all starting to you can tell she was lying earlier. Pam sees this too. Into that. So Pam goes about her life. She goes to work the next day, and sure enough, Rebecca Wentworth accosts her. She didn't accost her. She stops her on the sidewalk as Pam's heading to lunch. And in not so many words, they have a quick conversation. Rebecca confesses that, yes, I am your mom and I had hid that part of my life away from me. It was so hard. It was really, really hard to say goodbye to you guys. And just seeing you guys together last night was too much for me. But listen, my husband does not know that I was ever married before. I just never could say it to him. I never really divorced Digger Barnes. So I'd like to keep this quiet. I don't really want to say anything to him because he's sick and he just might fall over dead if I tell him now. So Pam's like, so you mean to tell me that I've met you, my mother's come back from the dead, and you're saying we can't have a relationship? And the mom's like, yeah, sorry, honey. Now, is that the truth or is she worried about him falling over dead, or is she worried about the fact that her whole marriage would be null and void if she was still married to Digger Barnes at the time of marrying this man? This is what I'm saying, y'all. Before now, like you probably could not get away with that. Now people would identify you. There's Facebook, there's all sort of pictures, but it was a wild, wild west up until about 1995. You could do whatever you want, say who you were, whoever you wanted to be. Now, how she goes to the doctor. I thought about this extensively. How does she go to the doctor? And he's like, oh, this is your first pregnancy. But then I remembered men probably weren't going with their wives to the OBGYN circa 1950-ish. She could tell him anything she wants. No, honey, I'm a virgin. I've never had any kids. 2 kids deep. Anyway, the episode ends with Pam going over to Cliff's house and he's about to leave, but he's like, hey, what were you going to tell me the other night? What'd you find out about Mom? And she's like, no, it wasn't Mom. The lady in Houston is just some lady in Houston. And he's like, oh. You can tell he's a little bit disappointed, but then he's just like, okay, well, I guess that's all about that. And that's all for this episode. Man, heartbreaking, but you know it opens a door to something else. Plus, I know there's a small spoiler. Not too long ago, one of my Google alerts was Victoria Principal, who does play Pamela Ewing, wishing her TV mom a 100th birthday. Now, I did not pay attention to who the actress was. I was more caught up in the fact that, wow, this lady's 100. That's so cool. So I'm assuming she's going to continue to be on the show. Now, will she be a villain? She didn't strike me as one. But, I mean, it couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt to build an arsenal, at least for Cliff's sake, of wealthy women to back him up. He's already got Donna. If his birth mama turns out to be a billionaire, but I bet their sister's going to come in and swoop in and mess it up. If she doesn't, I'm very disappointed. Something has to happen. Just, I hope it's not weird and, ancestral. They don't mind making people hook up with their relatives on these shows. Lucy even goes to ask her uncle lover friend Ray for some advice about her man on this episode. And I was quite uncomfortable. They don't address that. Let's just sweep it under the rug. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me. Oh, totally forgot to do fan mail. I have like 3 pieces to read. Sorry. We'll do that next episode. If you want to drop a line, check the show notes. Send me a text. Remember, folks, if your girlfriend is wealthy, and you are working for less than minimum wage, don't be afraid to tuck in the tags and return that suit to Dillard. There's no shame in saving a couple bucks here and there. Stay hydrated, stay moisturized, mind your business, and keep all of your drama on TV.